Cool. So I think we are now live. Let's just double check. There's 44 people watching. Hello, everyone. Cool. And I will just double check with Frederick. And I think we're going to see you good to go. Great. And now, Andrew, if you say something, do you appear?
Hello, good to be here.
Cool. Well, welcome everyone to part 3 of the Bringing Drupal AI into Your DNA. I will move this microphone closer to me. Today we're going to talk about AI search. And yeah, we're going to talk about how to boost Drupal search with AI. And we've got some, well, we've got some really cool demos to show you. So if I walk through this, yeah, my name's Jamie. I'm a co-founder of a tech agency, Freely Give, where we focus on native Drupal CRM and business applications. And I'm a founding member of the AI Initiative, but yeah, I'm not a programmer. So I've been doing a lot of this stuff. And with me today is Andrew.
Hi, I'm also a co-founder of Freely Give. So for work very close to Jamie for a long time. I started developing in PHP as a teenager, been working full time with almost exclusively Drupal since the release of Drupal 7, and I've kind of led several of our larger kind of enterprise AI powered projects.
So as a refresher, we are a part of the Drupal AI Initiative. So the Drupal Association has an official Drupal AI Initiative that is made up of a number of different member organizations and people that is pushing Drupal AI forward. At its heart is the AI module, which you can find here, drupal.org/project/AI. Oh yes, there is a thread on drupalslack.com which you can go to in hash. There's a link to it in the chat. But if you go to #AI, you can speak to us there and ask any questions. And there's a live chat on the on YouTube itself as well. So I will make sure I'm there so I can say hello to you all. And its heart is an abstraction layer. So as we said before, that means that when you build on top of the AI module, you can connect to a variety of providers like OpenAI and Claude. Some of them are collections of providers like Vertex or Bedrock or Hugging Face, and some are in the Drupal community itself, like the Amazy.io provider, which we'll actually talk about a bit today. And today we're focusing on the AI submodule. So if you install the AI module, there's a bunch of different submodules, and the AI search submodule is going to be our focus today, and a variety of different other modules that you'll need. You'll be able to find this talk and all other ones at new.drupal.org/AI/academy. So there's this webinar series about bringing Drupal into AI. If you click the link, it will take you to the playlist of all the different videos, so you can find them there, and also the upcoming ones. You can register for notifications there. That's the URL. But also, if you go to register for free, that will take you to a page that will allow you to sign up and receive notifications of all future training sessions. So this is going to be AI search, and the next two are going to be about agents. One for agents that for no-code agent orchestration and creating your own flows of agents, and the other for when you need to actually build things. So yeah, the purpose of the day is the purpose of the day is we're going to first talk a bit about why AI search is cool. So the most of this talk is going to be aimed at non-developers or people new to AI, wanting to find out about AI search and why it's a good idea, why it's good, how it's useful. And so we're going to show you what it can do and why it's good and why it's interesting compared to traditional search. We're going to go a bit further with some more advanced agentic AI search examples, but still grounded in the real world. and still useful. And then we'll look a little bit about the future of AI search. The end of this will focus, particularly with Andrew, on a more practical walkthrough of how to get started, how to install the modules, how to get your database set up. It's going to be a very basic, simple walkthrough. In the questions, we can go into more depth if you like, but it will be practical and real, and real modules you have to install, etc. So why AI search? Well, there was this AI search block, this talk to your data thing where you can type in something, ask a question, and AI goes and finds answers for you based around your own information. If you go to ChatGPT and you start talking, it might give you the right answer sometimes, but a lot of the time it's doing it based around its own training. And this AI search stuff allows you to get answers based around your actual data. So here's an example of why it's powerful. So we have an example here of Umami. So this is a core Drupal installation that uses out-of-the-box Drupal features to show you like a real website that has recipes that you can take a look at. And if you search the word Italy, you get nothing. But if we move to AI search, so recipes inspired by Italy, we find there is a deep Mediterranean quiche and even a pizza, gluten-free pizza, on this site that searching for Italy didn't turn up. Now, of course, there's lots of ways you could solve this with traditional search. I could make sure I put better tagging, so I could tag by country, and then Italy's going to come up. I could put the word Italy in the description. I could do synonyms in Solr to try and make sure that certain words appear in some other way. But all of that is a lot of work. It's all something you have to know to do for your audience and what they're likely to say. And a lot of the time, Drupal organizations just don't do that work. And so these traditional search things fail where they could have succeeded. But with AI search, you can see it just worked. And magically, it finds the kind of correct answers to the question that you're asking for. And so here's another one. This is more grounded in the Drupal community. And it's more grounded in the Drupal community. So this is a module finder. So when you have like a password recovery message, let's say you got the question, when I send a password recovery message in Drupal, the link that I click is not valid anymore. Do we have a module for this? I don't know. There's a little bit of a delay, but you're welcome to say in chat if you've ever encountered this problem. In fact, any as you go along, feel free to ask questions in the YouTube chat. And this is interesting because we have had this. Also, if you do things on Google Talk, etc. So we go to Google and say mail doesn't work, Drupal password reset module, and we have something like a support request, error when trying to reset password to the account. So Google didn't find us an answer. But this is another one where Google does some AI, where it does some search, and then uses AI to summarize its search results. But we don't have any control over how that index or that search works. So we can only summarize it based on the results that it gets. And you can see there, again, it's not looking in the right place. But if we use our module finder that we built, and I'll show you a bit about how you can get access to this, and actually we're going to talk a little bit about building this one. We find pretty quickly it finds this shy one time, and that's because a lot of the time certain browsers or chats will take a link and try and generate a preview by visiting that page, which then ruins one-time login links. And this shy one-time thing stops that. So we found in these cases, one, the Italian one is more like a proof of concept, but here we have something that is real. These are real questions that I've had asked of us, and Drupal AI could find, like Drupal AI search could find the answer where traditional search couldn't. So if you ever want to try any of this for yourself, there's a number of places you can go. So if you go to try.amazy.ai or amazy.drupal.ai Drupal, you can see, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you can try out a bunch of different AI demos. And the Italian Umami search one was right here. So if you go and select your data region and pick the AI search one, you'll be able to see that yourself. And you get an admin page. So you can then not only try it out, but go behind the scenes and find out how we actually built those things, which you'll see near the end. And then similarly with the Drupal Finder. So if you go to drupalforge.org/templates and the URL's there, you can actually try out the Drupal Finder thing yourself. So you click, you type in that number, you click Express Launch, and it will create for an hour a test example of that site, which you have, again, full admin access to. So whilst Andrew is going through how to set it up, if you'd like, you could go to Drupal Forge and get your own test copy set up, running, and then you can see behind the scenes how the module Finder was created. It's built from a GitHub library, so you can repo, so you can actually go and download it as well and play around with the code and improve it if you want to. There's a lot we could do to make that module Finder example significantly better, especially from a UI point of view, but also the AI stuff behind the scenes. So you're welcome to try and take that further. Also at drupalforge.org/u/freelygive, we're building up a collection of repos and demo sites there where you can try out other advanced AI features. So I particularly recommend the Drupal CMS AI agents test. Thank you, Frederick, and he's posted in chat links to those pages. So AI search, why is it good? Well, it's known as retrieval augmented generation. This is the ability to, when you generate answers from an LLM, augment those answers based around retrieving real information that you feed into it. There's actually a lot of different ways of doing this. In the early days, we're going to talk about something called a vector database later. And in the early days, RAG usually meant using vector databases. But actually, as you'll see, there's a number of ways of using even traditional search combined with AI to produce really great results. This is great for reducing yeah, cool. This is great for reducing hallucinations, but a lot of the ones that we showed just now don't fully eliminate hallucinations. We're actually going to go and move on to some AI search examples that fully eliminate hallucinations. But that's because if an AI doesn't know the question, it's been trained to give answers. And so if it doesn't know the answer to your question, or you're asking about something that happened recently and its training data stopped, a few months ago, it might still try and answer and just make something up. So what we found is if we can go and find your real data and put it into the prompt, so we share it with the LLM can use that information to generate an answer, and it's significantly more likely to be correct. And the other thing that's powerful is it's semantic search. It actually understands the meaning of your terms. It doesn't just look for the exact combination of letters. And you can see that with the Italy thing. It's very, very powerful because obviously when people search for things, they might not know the exact wording, how something was in the content they're looking for, but they usually know what they're trying to, what the meaning of the thing they're trying to say and find is. And this has become so powerful at helping AI find things more relevant without loads of extra work. It works with Search API, which is common in Drupal. It's like the main primary way that we handle search. It's fully integrated with that and fully pluggable, like we have with the AI module. All of the different data sources can be a variety of different providers. We're not locked into any one. So this first demo, although we have a lot of slides here, we do have quite a bit of time. So Andrew, when he goes into detail about this, Andrew, it's probably worth you pulling up some, a demo of this. But when you go into detail, we're going to talk to you the basics of how to get things set up. But if you want to know more about these more advanced things, Andrew can show you them. These aren't just easy to get on Drupal.org yet. They just need some work before they can be released. But they're very powerful. So search filter assistant. Now, working alongside the ECA in the Drupal community, they have an open source Europa platform that is available for anyone to download and use and play around with. And they have a variety of websites with publicly available information, but very important publicly available information that you can download through their site. And this is one such site. So we've built our own little copy using that, only the public side of this site, and only using the public side of the Europa platform. And it is a website, or this is a copy of the website, that shows a variety of different public health studies that have happened across the European Union. And you can see there's a whole bunch of facets. The question I ask are all filters along the left, like who's had this problem? They want to find something on a Drupal-like site, and there's just a ton of them there, and it's just a mess. It's really difficult to use. It's really confusing, but it's powerful, important, but it's not fun. There's a delay, so I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on this. You can reply about different examples of facets and filters that you've had, but it's been a common thing that we found a lot of people have an issue with. So what we did is we asked it this question. So what we're going to do actually first is going to ask the question on Drupal. So it studies about lung cancer outside of Europe. Now, you'll notice if you put that into the search, it doesn't work. But you notice even with Google, the first thing is Spanish real-world data. It didn't actually understand, I want outside of Europe. I don't want Europe. It just used the word Europe, and it found me something there. In fact, did I have a slide? Oh, yeah, you can see that first slide there with all the facets. We've done studies about lung cancer outside of Europe. And you can see again on their, the actual website, the first thing they see is Italy. Now, if you went and filtered by specific countries you know to be outside of Europe, you'd be able to get the right answer. But with the search, you can't do that unless you put in all of those filters. So now we used our magic AI filter assistant, and we do studies about lung cancer outside of Europe. And look, magically, it's there. It shows the first one is China, the second one is United States. And in this example, we've actually overlaid and shown you the filters it's picked. And yeah, not Europe, outside of Europe. And yeah, and actually, if you want to, this is zero hallucinations because the final results are just what comes from your own database. But if you want to, you can expose the assistant's message. So it describes why it picked what it did. It picked you like studies were filtered to include those on lung cancer including all major subtypes, because that's a possibility. Only countries outside of Europe, and they gave them examples. And it even gave you suggestions for refinements, for things you could do to make this study, this set of searches even better. But there is a risk of hallucinations. Although the answers are not going to hallucinate, this little block that shows the reasons could say something that you don't have control over. So you can choose to implement these things depending on your appetite and your users' familiarity with the benefits of AI and the pitfalls of it. Yeah, or you can just expose it, not have the filters on there, and then you have a really nice clean interface. It just seems to magically know the answers to your questions. So just behind the scenes, there's actually and like I said, Andrew can go into more detail about this. I'm going to talk about this Agent Explorer later. It's more of a developer tool to debug these agents, but you can see a bit behind the scenes where when you ask it the question, it's actually going through a list of all the possible filters. We've prepared that list of filters in a way that AI can easily see and pick from, and it's coming up with an answer. And then it will actually come along and give to AI a bunch of different filters that it wants to apply in a format that Drupal can take and actually pass into the URL and then filter everything. So you can see the countries now as a list of IDs. And so there's a lot of stuff we have to do behind the scenes to make sure that the data we have in Drupal, that is, we're giving to LM to pick from, also we get back the kind of data that the views filters want to take as inputs. And this you obviously would not show to your end user. But if you wanted to, you can get rid of all the filters and you can have a nicer UI. You ask this question and it just gives you the right answer. So, Search Filter Assistant, it just works. A powerful thing about this is it did not take too long to build. I think we'll be able to build it in such a way that will be a generic module that will work across all views filters and all ways of filtering and Drupal content types. But certainly building it specifically for this use case did not take too long. This presents the user content with no hallucinations, zero hallucinations. Yep. So somebody mentioned in traditional APIs, it's possible to boost results based on a specific field. From what I understand, LLMs now determine which content to boost based on semantic relevance instead. And there are demos of that with Boost of AI. And we're going to see with our deep research and approach that. There are some issues with using LLMs to boost relevance. because the way that relevance is calculated with semantic search is slightly different to the way it's done with traditional. So you have to put a bit of effort to bring those two things together consistently. In this one, actually, there's no hallucinations, because actually AI is not doing the search. It's merely selecting the filters. So all the search and all the content is what you already have on your site. Very low privacy risks, no more than just Google Analytics. LLMs do get the queries, but it's not a long chat. And it's the kind of thing where you very rarely expect, if I type something into a search filter on a website, that data will be private and entirely mine. It might not be connected back to me. That might be a thing. But most search sites will have some analytics where they look at specific search terms. So if you put PII into a search term on any random like product website, you always know that you run the risk that might appear in a report somewhere. And so it's low. It's not zero, but it's no more than Google Analytics. And if you move to sovereign AI, you could even get it down to zero. But it does require a good set of existing filters and data that's structured nicely. The next thing we want to move on to is agentic search. So out of interest, it's quite small. Do I have a zoom feature here? No, I've got drawing. Okay. What I tried to do is actually I asked this question, and if you were to zoom in, you can see that I asked this question to ChatGPT Web Search. And ChatGPT Web Search is agentic search, where it doesn't use any vector databases. It doesn't use anything clever like that. It just uses normal web search, but an agent goes and tries to find the content, looks at it, and tries again, looks at it, and tries again until it finds something that's relevant. In this case, however, I tried the thing of studies outside. I had to change it from studies to another word. It didn't like the first word I picked, but it still has non-European countries all at the front because it's not applying the filters and it's not actually interacting with the tools that Drupal has available to it. It still couldn't see anything on the front page of search results other than things that were European, and it couldn't figure out how to put those in. And that's the power, again, of us doing things in Drupal. We can control and constrain AI to actually solve the problems using the tools available to us, and including hidden metadata that ChatGPT Web Search wasn't able to do. So I zoom in a little bit more so you can see the answer. And you can see the first one was, EU France. So instead, we've gone for something which is our own take on deep research. So here we have instructions, and this is now looking at a database of COVID-related studies. And we're looking for guidelines like about how a doctor can treat someone. And so the doctor can put in a patient history into this system, and it will go and do more like a research project, gradually looking through things, finding them, thinking about them, analyzing them, doing more than one search. And we're actually going to build something called Artifacts soon, where it will then be able to create a report, but it knows there's a report that it's working on and improving on. So every single time the agent goes away and looks at something, it looks at the report and tries to decide, should this go in? Should I change the report in some way because there's new information? So we have this instruction. And again, behind the scenes, we have this API Explorer that shows you how I ask this question, an agent goes and thinks of all the different databases it can search, can combine multiple, and then put search terms in them. And then it starts finding answers, finding things that are helpful, and then looking at those and summarizing them. So finally, it ends with a list of the studies. Again, this could be a view, could be styled, no hallucinations. But if you want to, when you click edit on this one, you can see a summary. And this is something where the AI agent has actually, a lot of the time, it can go and read the whole study, the whole PDF that's attached to this node or article, and then write a summary of why it thinks it's relevant and why it's linked to that thing. And this is another powerful way that you don't necessarily need to use new vector databases or semantic search. You can use AI agents with whatever search databases you have, or in combination with the existing ones and new ones to provide much more powerful answers. So it can use AI, agentic search, can you use AI and reasoning to look at the results, can explore if it's relevant or not specifically, which the other one couldn't. So the other one didn't actually look at the results, the filters. And somebody asked a question, and there is a more in-depth discussion happening right now on Hash AI. Kevin has done a lot of really great stuff with semantic search and re-ranking. So there's a new Solr-based module that's coming out. So if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about what we're talking about on #AI on Drupal.org, there's a conversation happening right now with links to what Kevin's done with with vectors, dense vectors. So the future, MCP. So I don't know if everyone's heard about MCP already, Model Context Protocol, but it's like the next big thing that everyone's interested in. And it is a way of agents being able to talk to tools on another site, understand how to use them and make use of them. It allows us to connect sites together much more effectively. So before MCP, you would have a service like Drupal, and someone would have to build. It would use a JSON API usually, so it's not too bad. But for every single new piece of software, you'd have to build a specific bespoke connection to that software. So you'd have to have a Slack integration, Google Drive integration, GitHub or GitLab integration, and you would have, for every single feature that you want to use from that other system, you'd have to again code something for that bridge. But with MCP, you have something in the middle. So as long as our Drupal site can use MCP at all, making something called an MCP client, and as long as the other systems can have an MCP server, like Slack does or Google Drive does, then our system only has to communicate with the MCP server itself, and it doesn't have to do any extra coding to be able to use all of those tools. And there's a ton of work there to allow for authentication via OAuth, good description of those tools, clever ways of loading them or traversing and finding the tools that you want. And similarly, we were one of the first of our kind of open source CMSs to provide Drupal as MCP server. So that means other systems can connect to the agents inside us. And so there's one example here of a Drupal Slack bot, where Drupal, we made a Drupal Slack bot, a Drupal bot. In Slack, you type in @DrupalBot, ask a question, but it goes off to the Drupal site, does AI search, does a small summary, returns a result with the bot. And we have gone, but there's one slide that shows how we used ECA to actually build it behind the scenes. So it's a visual no-code builder. And the future is, I think we're going to do this a lot more. So here it's FlowDrop. It's one possible UI for connecting a mixture of agents and other tools and other things together in a flow. So a lot of time when you want to do search, you kind of want to search for one thing, think about it, move on to the next, think about it. And we've got these tools here to allow you to build these flows that connect everything together and do search, but also connect to MCP. Again, no developer needed. In fact, MCP servers don't even need to be made by the company in question. Other people can release open source MCP servers for, let's say, Slack. And so even if Slack don't support MCP, somebody else can build an MCP server that connects to Slack's APIs. And so the community can create those MCP connections without the company doing it. And then all of our tools can just bring that in. The other thing that I think is the future of AI search is you're going to hear a lot about it at Vienna, but we've been working a lot on Canvas AI and building landing pages. And that's really cool and all, but actually it applies to search quite well, because you saw how with AI search, we collected from existing content a page that shows a list. But we've also got loads of like collections of data inside Drupal, like FAQs and more information about that product, etc. So instead of having it so that the AI search goes and finds you some pages where you have to click on a page and read it, one concept is the adaptive digital experience. When you're searching, what if AI generated a landing page for you? You're looking for a product, a set of products for a particular trip you're going to, you describe it. And instead of like typing out the answer, which can hallucinate, it brings in all the products for you and also the specific information about that product that you need to know. You don't have to go and look through the whole FAQs, only the bits that you need are there. There's a content librarian where with the new tools that is coming out soon, we're going to have it so that actually we can change and edit and create content, not just create the structure like we do at the moment having Drupal CMS, which then means we can have AI agents look at any single piece of content and tag it with taxonomy, with select lists, with anything. The other thing we found that's very powerful is normal search needs like very specific information, like really specific tags. If you have too many tags on something, humans will get bored and won't want to look at it. But with AI, it's actually better to have richer metadata, go into detail about how to use it. We'll see that in a little bit with the module search where we actually go and write out all the ways you can use this. That makes it more likely for the semantic search to hit if there's more data about your content there. So we can use AI to create that metadata. And even if it's not perfect, because it's not shown to the end user, it will still be a lot better than without it. And then finally, we think AI search can actually solve problems. As part of agentic workflows, AI search is not just a tool human uses to find a piece of content and then they go and do something. We can have search as part of a collection of tools. So like in Canvas AI, when it builds a page, it needs to find images. But it doesn't just have, we don't just have a find image with AI stuff. It can be part of a whole workflow where the end result has a whole bunch of very relevant images. We're going to need clear orchestration, as I showed before, in order to do that. So that's like an intro to it. And we're now going to move on to Andrew's going to come along and work through this. Andrew, do you need to control the slide? Can you control the slides, or do you want me to? Or you can.
No, you can control the slides. That'll be fine.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry.
Yeah, over to you.
Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a kind of practical how to get started with this. So how to set up, how to actually start using the modules, which modules you need to make use of, to put together the Drupal module finder. So we've got a little overview here. So we're going to look at the AI module itself and the integration with Search API. We're going to look at vector databases, which is where we store those semantic search results. We're going to look at how that gets indexed and how we set those up. And then we're going to look at the assistance API and the deep track block, which are used to present and surface that information. So we're going to start off with the AI module itself and the vector database provider. So in this, we've got the AI providers. So that could be OpenAI or Claude, Anthropic. We've got AI Search, which is a connector module between AI Core and Search API. And then we're going to have a vector database provider. So we'll go a little bit more on what that means as we go through this. So first, you'll need to install your modules. So if you're pulling one of the repos that we've got hosted, you can do a composer install it, pull them in automatically. If you're using the Amazing AI or Drupal Forge, they'll be pre-downloaded for you and be available for you and pre-installed. But a composer install command is the easiest way to do that from a development perspective, and then enable the AI modules. And in here, you'll see we're also enabling the AI API Explorer, which Jamie mentioned earlier, and we'll touch on later because that gives a really useful insight into what's going on under the covers. So once you've set up all of your modules, you'll also need your providers. So we've got OpenAI in here, you can see, and we've got our Postgres vector database provider. So we'll demonstrate Postgres, but that could be using providers. We've got things coming for Solr. I know MariaDB and MySQL are working towards providing vector databases as well. And as we develop and release those, the options will expand. If you want a really quick and easy way to do this, then check out the AI provider Amazee.io. So Amazee have provided a single module which encapsulates both the LLM provider, but also a vector database, and does so in a privacy-safe, privacy-centric environment in AWS. Making use of Bedrock, and you will get some free credits as part of that as well. So you can install it on your site and connect up, get some free credits, and get going without having to put in credit card details or anything else into the various different providers. And it's quite nice because it gives you the vector database out of the box, which can be a bit of a pain to set up. So as well as setting up your AI credentials for OpenAI or various other things like that, you need to configure your Postgres connection. So in this case, we're using a kind of Postgres container in our local development environment using ddev. So specify the port and connection details. And then we jump into configuring search. So I imagine a lot of you will be familiar with Search API. Our vector databases work on top of Search API. So you'll see that we've got a server in here where you set up your server, you'll choose the vector database provider that you want to make use of, and then you will add an index. So in this case, we've got our module server, and a modules index. So the server is effectively selecting which VDB provider you want to use. But if we go into the modules index, you'll start to see some of the configuration we've got now. So first thing we want to do is select our data source. So in this case, we're going to be index. Obviously, because we're using Search API, you can actually use this flexibly with all the different bits of data Drupal's got access to, which is one of the great reasons why we think Drupal is so powerful for all of our I/O work. It is directly connected to all the data that we might want to use. But in this case, we'll use content, and then we need to start setting up our fields. So adding fields into the index, again, this is just using standard Search API controls. So you can add in your fields, you can follow entity references and all the other things. If you want data exposed, fields get exposed automatically, but you can also add in other fields in the same way that you would for Search API in general. But before we go into detail on what you're seeing here, is we'll go take a little bit of a step back of understanding what is actually going into a vector database. You see we've got a few different indexing options here, but let's try and talk about what it actually means under the covers. So when you're doing a search, what you're typically working with in Solr or another database search is the actual keywords or filters. And as we discussed earlier, keywords can be a bit complicated. There are lots of different words that have similar meanings, and you can use things like synonyms to solve that or other complex methods. But what's really great about vector-based search is vectors effectively translate the meaning of the words. So I think it's on the next slide. We'll have a look at what vectors mean. So if you think we've got an academic definition here, so a way of representing data as points in n-dimensional space, so that similar data points clustered together. But Jamie's quick shorthand version of that is a way of capturing and scoring what something means. So when we're talking about a semantic search, that's really what we're talking about. And this chart gives us a little bit of a flow for how that actually works. So we start off with our data source. So it could be a PDF, could be content, could be your product information. We start off by chunking that. So one of the things that you'll find with LLMs is context is important and context length is important. And the more context you provide, the kind of washier your meaning gets. So what we do is we chunk that into reasonable sizes. And then we go through a process that's called embeddings. And embeddings is really converting us into the what are called vectors. So vectors are just little bits of, they're effectively numbers. And so those numbers group together into those similar data points. So how we actually end up scoring and aggregating them. That then goes into a vector database. So what you'll find is it's a very different structure because you've got a very, very large list of lots of vectors, which will be a kind of combination of several numbers. And then they're stored quite differently to your traditional relational database, which is where kind of we're getting support coming in with some of with things like MariaDB, but Postgres has already got that. And so now we've got all of our data stored, now we want to surface it. So in the same vein, when you put in a prompt, for example, what is Drupal, we then again embed the question. So we generate those same set of vectors, but for the question instead of the content. So now we've got a database with lots of these vectors, and we've got a question that's been converted into vectors, and we then do a similarity search. So that's semantic vector search. And effectively what it's doing is it's trying to find vectors that are similar between your question and the content. The vector store then returns those pieces of content, and that then can go back into the LLM with the full text of the content. It can then understand, interpret that, and generate the answer from there. And fairly soon we'll start to see a bit of that flow actually happening. But if we jump back in to the field configuration. Okay, great. So what you're seeing in here, sorry, if you go back one slide, so this is then showing the process. So in here, we've sent a message saying, when I send a password recovery message in Drupal, the link that I click is not valid. So what we're about to see next is the kind of logs that are showing the interaction that are going on here. So at the beginning, we start with a message. We've then got the data that goes out into the vector search. So we send off, get back a bunch of results, and those results get sent back into the LLM, and then that provides a result at the other end. So this is the Vector DB Explorer, so part of the AI API Explorers. So this is giving us the direct result from the database. So on the left, we've got our search query. What happens like I did. You can then, once it's embedded, it will then do the semantic search. So in here, you'll see the chunks that are being returned. So earlier we talked about how a single document gets broken up into smaller chunks. Each chunk can then get returned, and that's what you're seeing here. And you're seeing a score, which is the relevance between the two. So this data that's coming back here is what's then coming back into the LLM. And for some easier formatting, we've got here we go. So you would have seen that that's format. So now we're showing you this kind of formatted C because there's quite a lot of data in there. So for the shy1 module, in that chunk, we've got our introduction, which is telling us about the module. We've got version information, and this is all the data that's kind of going in as part of the main vector database itself. But we also have something called contextual data. So what we don't want to do is provide such a small chunk of data that we have no contextual information to understand what's going on. So in every single chunk, you will get the contextual data included. So in this case, we get the title of the module, a summary of the module, and the affordances, modules, various other things like that. Now, what you're seeing in here is actually some of this is generated by AI as part of the process as well. So things like the module summary and the affordances completed by AI. So we're not having to put loads and loads of effort into curating and generating all this detailed information. The AI can do that by understanding the module and then starting to kind of get a short summary, which it will kind of work nicely with. And the affordances is kind of the use cases for it. So we've been through the setup of the AI module and the vector database itself. So now how do we make use of those results? And how do we make sure we've got the right data in there? And just jumping back into the contextual data, Jamie's got quite a nice example, which is if you were to index Lord of the Rings. So let's say you were to chunk it a paragraph at a time. If you ask it a question about Gandalf, you could get a result for Gandalf. You ask a question about what does Gandalf, the context that we're part of Lord of the Rings isn't a part of that paragraph. The LLM is not going to know that in and of itself. So this contextual data might include the fact that we're in Lord of the Rings. It might contain the author. It might contain other contextual information that can help feed into that. So now we'll go into actually setting up the index. So as you saw earlier, we've got our vector database. So again, this is Search API's standard user interface. So we've added a field. In this case, we've added the URI, and we can choose a different indexing options. So the main content is the kind of the bit that gets chunked, and that's the bit that we kind of look at for the main part of the relevant information. But then we also have this contextual content. So in this case, we've got the URL is being added as contextual content to every chunk. We're also able to add in filterable attributes, so that allows you to do things like pre-filter against standard style filtering. So you could do that for things like status and whether or not is published or not, and various other things like that. And you see in here, we've actually got quite a lot of data in the module search, which is contextual. So we've got one item, which is the module description, that's the main content. Everything else is contextual content and gets included in every single chunk. And then we can set up processes. So again, this is one of the real big benefits of using Search API. We get access to kind of the various different processes and controls. So we've got content access. This is obviously really important when we're starting to expose information into LLMs, to make sure that we're not bypassing our standard Drupal's access controls. So we've got full support for kind of standard content access to make sure that when you're executing your search, you're only getting results provided to the LLM that you have access to. And there are various other things in here as you can use as well as creating your own custom processes where that might be useful. So now we've got our AI module set up, we've got our database set up, and we've got the content indexed in it. Now we're going to surface up to the user. So what we're going to use here is the Assistance API, which configures how the actual chatbot works itself. So this is an API layer to not expose directly to the user, and that means that it can get used in lots of different contexts. So it could be through a little chat pop-up, it could be through content in a page, it could be through the command line, it could be through an API endpoint. So what we have is an AI assistant, so you can access the configuration menus. And the key parts we've got here, we've got our kind of titles, that's so we can find it easy. The administrative description is primarily used for other AI, so other bits of LLMs. So for example, MCP that we were talking about earlier, or if you're making use of sub-agents, that description is there so that the LLM can understand what it is this particular assistant can help with. And that allows you to do things like chaining assistants together. So you might have an assistant that is a search assistant, but then you might have a specific module assistant, which has got some extra instructions to help make sure you're selecting the appropriate modules. And the kind of first agent may be the end. Once it understands that you're searching for module information, it might then pass on to a module AI assistant. The key part in here then is the instructions. So this is how we're tailoring the LLM to understand what it needs to do and how it needs to behave. And we've got that pulled up here so you can see it a little bit clearer. So we're a looping agent specializing in Drupal 11 solutions, and your task is to look up in the directory using RAG search for different modules that might solve the user's issues. A lot of this is kind of relatively boilerplate, but it's important for it to have the right context for how to approach the problem. We include things like how it should respond. So we tell it to use bullet points, or to link to external modules when you're giving an answer, and to give an explanation of why those modules are a good fit. We then need to set up our RAG. So we expose the RAG database to the assistant. So we can kind of tailor it a little bit, like how many results and how accurate, how relevant those results are. And then again, there are some advanced settings for things like status, the session history, so your kind of chat history that goes into the context. So now we've got an assistant that can actually do the work. We want to expose that. And the deep chat UI effectively is the kind of fairly standard AI chatbot pop-up, and it's exposed as a block. So you can see on here in the content region, we've just placed a block as we've selected the AI agent chatbot. And you can see in the configuration, we've got a bit of control over exactly what's in there. So first message is what will be seen when someone first expands it. We can name it. We can give a few other bits of control over here, as well as selecting the AI assistant that we're going to make use of. So all of that comes together to give us that module finder that we saw earlier in the slides. And like I said, if you want to try it out yourself, there are a few different ways to do that. So we've got Amazing AI's AI experience, so you can sign up to try that. The AI search is the last item on here, so you can make use of that to try this particular demo. They've also got other demos on there as well. And as we mentioned earlier, Drupal Forge has got a number of different things, including the module finder, and you can kind of answer the maths question to launch a site that will be up and available. I think it normally takes 5 to 10 seconds and will be available for an hour for you to have a play with. I'll hand back over to Jamie.
Cool. Yep. thank you for that. So as we mentioned on Drupal Forge, you can try these things out for yourself and build those pages. But for further training, we do have, as I mentioned at the beginning, a number of other talks in our series, including no code agent swarm. So you can build whole workflows of agents without any code, and we'll show you how to do that. And we've got some people coming in to give some of that talk who have had some experience themselves with this. And then developing custom agents is more for developers when you actually need to use code for it. The goal is a hackathon that the European Commission will host, I think in Q1 2026. We'll have more information about that soon. But also next week, it's DrupalCon Vienna. So for any of you who are coming there, Frederick is actually going to put together a workshop where it will be the same, similar to what we've done today. But yeah, it'll be a workshop where you can build it yourself and have someone help you work through it. There's a number of AI-related workshops now going to be at DrupalCon Vienna. There's also going to be a lot of announcements. It's going to be an exciting time, so look forward to seeing you there. And if you want to know how to contribute, well, you can join the Drupal AI Initiative. So anyone who's interested, you can contact the Drupal Association directly. Contact one of us. Say so on #AI-initiative. But also, if you want to contribute generally, #AI and #AI-contrib are the places where we spend a lot of our time, as well as the issue queues. You can also go to Drupal Starforge AI, and you can see all the issues that are there. So I will post that in the chat. Yeah, so you're going to configure it in depth together if you come along to the Drupal Con Vienna workshops. And we're going to have we've started doing regular contrib days and office hours, particularly async. So almost every day you'll find people who are doing things. You can ask questions if you want to contribute and things to go for. On Starforge, if you go to the Kanban board, you can see issues that need reviewing. That's always the best way to get in. So if you have any questions, I know there's a little bit of a delay. So give me a shout on chat. YouTube chat. There's been quite a lively conversation. It's not so much questions, but back and forth on #AI, showing off Kevin's deep API solid dense vector module. But otherwise, yeah, does anyone want to have any questions on YouTube? Any more details about any of the things talked about here? If not, so I can share this instead. So this place is Search API dense vector field. So this is particularly putting a lot of effort onto what I used to call Boost with AI, where you use AI to re-rank and you enable vector comparison search. So that is not necessarily using AI, I think, but using vector-based searches combined with traditional searches to provide results. And there's a link to the workshop. Why don't I put that on the screen as well? Share this tab. Start Drupal and AI up and running with the AI ecosystem in no time. We have the last talk was a talk about freedom to get started with this with AI, and this is now about search. But you can come to the workshop at the beginner level at DrupalCon. So do you think RAG will never be useful, or is there a use case for it? Yeah, I think particularly for agents, RAG is always, I think it's always going to be useful. So even with the traditional agentic search, we use a traditional search, RAG is really powerful because getting connections based around meaning matters a lot. What I think is RAG is the best when it's combined with something else. There's certain things RAG is very bad at. So searching based around like, here's a specific error key, that's bad. If you want to say, I need a recipe for pizza, then everything on your recipe site will be high relevance because you're talking about recipes. So it's quite hard to combine results. because exactly what the cutoff point is, and it changes quite a lot depending on the search terms. So I find that the best place for RAG is when it's provided to agents. So having vector searches be used for media agents to find some image that is useful to you, when you also have AI look at an image and summarize it. There's a large amount of text describing what is on that image and why you'd want to use it for what marketing purposes. Having AI agents use RAG search to do that, I think is very powerful compared to traditional search. So I think Frederick, I don't know if that's answering your question. And yeah, like I said, if you want to get involved, you can go to this StarForge where you can see all the issues that organizations are working on right now. And if you go to this Kanban, there's a bunch of different projects, but you can take a look at the priority issues, and you can see there's a bunch of different issues that could benefit from somebody reviewing them. And that's the best way to get involved. So with that being said, great. Well, thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you on the 21st? Better if we go back to the dates. Yeah, the 21st of October and the 4th of November. So thank you. Feel free to get in touch with us or anyone in the AI Initiative. See you around.